One day, this man decided that he wanted to enjoy a meal out with his family. The main thing preventing them from having a nice evening out was the fact that a group of girls have him a very hard time. He knew that they need to be taught a lesson. They had no idea what was in store for them, as things escalated quickly. Here's what happened. Tom and his family waited to park the car, excitedly waiting for their dinner out at one of their favorite restaurants. Tom waited a while to park, since the parking lot was really crowded. Finally, a spot opened up. Just as Tom started to move into the parking spot, he was sharply cut off by another driver. The whole family was stunned by what had just taken place. A few girls got out of the parked car, ignoring the family, and headed into the restaurant. Tom was taken by complete surprise and could not believe how careless the girls seemed about what they had just done. Of course, parking etiquette dictates that a spot is taken by a first-come, first-served basis, but they completely flouted this unspoken rule. Tom decided to confront the driver, but she cut him off and said, "Too bad." He was so surprised by what had happened, and he decided then that they needed to be taught a lesson. Tom and his family decided to put this episode behind them in order to make the most out of their evening out. However, Tom still couldn't really let it go, and knew that he had to make things right. All Tom wanted was a nice evening out with his family, but these girls effectively ruined this plan for him. He then noticed the group of girls sitting at a nearby table, and they seemed to be drinking quite a lot. He then decided to recruit a waiter's help. Tom gave the waiter $20 to help him out, which the waiter accepted happily. He was very curious about the situation and wanted to help Tom out. It was clear that the boisterous, noisy girls were bothering many of the other restaurant patrons. Tom told the waiter to wait 10 minutes after he and his family left the restaurant. Then, the waiter would tell the girls that somebody called to say that their car had been keyed and that they should have chosen a different parking spot. The waiter accepted the $20 and told Tom that he would go along with the plan. Tom was tempted to stay and watch the girls' reaction, but decided that the plan would run much more smoothly if he was not there. Tom didn't want anything bad to happen to the girls, just to give them a bit of a fright and teach them a lesson. After he got back home, he called the waiter to see what happened and how the plan went. He had no idea how things would get so out of hand. The girls ended up making a huge scene, calling attention to themselves, and they actually also ended up calling the police. Once the cops arrived, they saw that the girls' car was not scratched at all. There was nothing that the police could do. After they finished their meal, they headed back to the car. However, it was clear to everyone nearby that they had had way too much to drink, and it would not be safe for any of them to drive. Unluckily for the girls, the cops were still nearby, and they intervened once they got into their car. It seems like karma got the best of the girls in the end. Their rude and careless behavior led to the police being called and then being seen by the police when they attempted to drunkenly drive home. Would they get arrested? The only reason why the cops were there in the first place was because they had acted too immaturely. However, nobody expected that Tom's attempt to teach the girls a lesson would end up with them getting charged with a DUI. Tom decided to go back to the restaurant and give the waiter an additional $20 to thank him for helping out. So in the end, the waiter made $40 total. Some people thought that Tom went too far. What do you think? Tom wanted to teach the girls a lesson because they had acted so rudely. However, he never realized that the police would become involved. He was surprised that this ended up happening, but the fact remained that the girls were the ones who called the police, not Tom. Looking back on the plan, Tom didn't do anything wrong. He wanted to give them a scare in order to teach them a lesson. He never meant for them to get in trouble with the law, but it was their own rude behavior and DUI attempt that got them in so much trouble. When a wider audience learned about the story, many believed the whole thing was made up. Of course, what's important in this story is to take away the lesson. It never hurts to be a good person. Being rude will always come back to bite you in the end. A lot of people brought up the point that it would be strange for Tom to make up this story. This story has an important moral, and it doesn't really seem like one that would just be completely made up. The thing is, the girls are still pretty lucky in the end. The fact that there are no photos from the incident and that their names have not been publicized means that they have a chance to learn their lesson without being targeted online. Of course, We hope that these girls learn to treat others better and not judge the people that are around us. Hopefully, they also learned a second lesson. What was that? The main takeaway here is that no good comes out of being rude to other people. It will always catch up to you, just as it did when these girls decided to be mean for no reason. Unfortunately, Tom was not the only one to experience something like this. One man was facing a problem when this woman made the situation even more complicated. What happened? This man was facing a tough day at work as he needed to deliver materials and keep to his schedule. When he arrived at the destination, he saw that a woman had parked in his spot. He politely asked her to move, and she immediately refused. The man was working as a foreman at a construction site. He never had issues doing his job until this woman blocked his spot. She was directly blocking him from doing his job. The foreman's job was already more complicated than usual since the area was on a one-way access road. It was not easy working on a construction zone on a one-way street, and it was made even more difficult since the road was inclined, making matters worse. There's an important reason why delivery trucks need the foothill spot. It's because it helps prevent the truck from moving around and help avoid accidents. The woman took up this important parking spot and was being very difficult about the situation. There are plenty of people out there that park in spots that are labeled "no parking." In this case, the woman was a mom waiting for her child. She parked in a no parking spot and refused to move until her child came out from school. It's usually not an issue for people to park in these spots temporarily if there are no deliveries being made. However, this is not the case if there is a construction truck or delivery truck on the site. The driver tried to explain the situation and asked her if she would be moving anytime soon. So what happens when someone parks in a delivery truck spot? This woman found out when the foreman tried to explain the situation kindly. However, her response was definitely unexpected. This was a busy construction site, and the right people were informed about the delivery that was supposed to be made. However, she still refused to move out of the spot. The foreman approached the car to try to talk to her again, but he noticed that she was on the phone. He tried to get the woman's attention, but nothing helped. She then noticed him and rolled down the window. After he asked her to move again, she refused and did not cooperate. The main issue was how the woman was speaking to him. She was incredibly rude and did not seem to care what he had to say. She disregarded his kindness completely. He tried to calmly explain to her the situation, but he saw that she was getting more and more frustrated. That didn't change the fact that she was preventing him from doing his job. She wouldn't move her car, and so he tried to shift to a more serious tone that was not as friendly. That still did not help. He tried to make her understand how serious the situation was, but she wasn't having it. This poor foreman couldn't understand why this woman was so angry with him. He decided to get the truck driver to park next to the woman's car. Nobody could have expected what happened next. The foreman got the driver to agree to the plan, as it was clear that the driver was just as frustrated with the woman, and he wanted her to learn her lesson. What did she do? Now the woman's car was boxed in between two cars, and she had no way to get out. After the truck was parked next to her, the foreman moved on to the next part of his plan. The woman tried not to make eye contact with the foreman, but this didn't last long. Initially, the construction workers on the site thought their plan failed. That's when they decided to call the police. The foreman explained to the cops what was going on, but it was not what you expected it to be. The foreman didn't want to get her in trouble, but he did want there to be a record so that the construction site wouldn't get in trouble for blocking part of the street. The woman was scared when the police was called, and hopefully, she finally learned her lesson.